Hey, good afternoon everyone, back with another knife review. Today we're looking at the Face Blades SHPOS Gen 3 folder. Quite the mouthful. Before we get started, do a quick wrist check. Today I'm wearing my Aries mission timer. This is the triple-aught design version, as well as the patch of the day, which is from Vato Tactical. Thanks, idiots. All right, the details on the SHPOS Gen 3 folder, it sports a 3-inch blade. The entire body is made out of titanium. It is monolithic in design, and by that there are no backspacers, standoffs, etc. Completely monolithic folder. The blade material is S45VN. In order to activate this knife, it actually has a button lock, so it's not assisted open or anything like that, but button lock to close it. It has a little flipper tab to actuate it. This is running on bearings. And another item of note with this knife is if you go to Face Blades website, looking up information on this, there is a pretty, I just think it's interesting. They mention a break-in period for this knife, which all told, I bought this a few months ago, but I haven't really carried it that much. I've played with it a little bit, but I guess I need to keep in mind, and it's the first knife where there's ever been like a disclaimer as far as, breaking it in to make the action smoother so that it's not sticky, etc. So just something to think about it. The manufacturer of this knife actually, wants you to break this thing in before you go complaining to them about it, not working right. With that, I am very familiar with Face Blades. I have several of their fixed blades. I thought the box that this came in was just really cool. So you have this, Native American. Of course, he has an M4 on his back, so it's a little bit, we're a little out of specs there, but pretty cool. Has a tomahawk and a scalp. It has, it's magnetic. This box, you open it up, it was wrapped in this foil, and then it has, the warranty information. It also reminds you that this knife is sharp. So who knew? It was news to me. Glad I read that. Yeah. All right, as far as the pros go with this knife, based on my experience with it, I really do like the monolithic design of this knife. It looks very futuristic. The titanium is milled out in such a way that there aren't any, sharp edges. They did a really nice job with manufacturing this knife. I know that Face Blades does not make this in-house, and I've done some research. No one really knows who makes these for them, but whoever it is, I mean, they're a legitimate company. And I think like what you look at, this, I did that review on the Cav folder, like the newer one that came out. This feels like a special knife in the sense that, it is monolithic in design. You can tell they put some time and effort into designing this thing. It does not feel like a parts box knife, which I've definitely hit fixed blade companies coming out with folders on just how their folders just feel like you're putting Legos together and then that's what you got. But it's interesting, and I think it's worth noting, this is absolutely in 2022 premium materials, S45VN steel, running on bearings, titanium. This thing has all the salient characteristics of a really nice knife. They did not cut any corners with this thing, and I think that's really cool. They shot their shot, if you will. And with that, my next pro is this is very lightweight usually for full titanium knives, which, realizing that this only has a 3-inch blade, they can get a little bit bulky and heavy. This one is very lightweight. I mean, if this was a MMA fighter, it would definitely be in the featherweight category. Like this thing, it feels really good in your hand, very lightweight, premium materials. The last pro that I have is the jimping on it, which this is actually some of my favorite jimping. I know I recently reviewed the Spyderco Shaman. That one had really nice shallow but kind of sawtooth jimping. This one feels really nice. It's rounded. They even took the time to do some jimping back here on this like lanyard hole that sticks out. We'll talk about that in a second. But all in all, this thing is really comfortable. Like whether I'm holding it, thumb down or putting my thumb along the top of the knife for any jimping work. And you know, it's kind of, I guess, something that I haven't seen so much. You know, they took down the top of the blade here. Sorry, I forgot my camera's upside down here. You know, they took down the blade material. So like it used to be, you know, monolithic with the frame, but it kind of dips down a little bit, which I saw at first and I was like, oh man, it looks kind of weird. Like it looks like lazy to me, but it actually is really comfortable. Like I like how there's a little bit of like a thumb ramp that lets you know you're at the end of the jimping. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I like how it turned out. All right, before I go any further with this review and getting into the cons, one of the pros that I forgot was just the fact that Face Blades has done a really good job of making this knife available. And one of my kind of gripes with that cav folder was that, you know, immediately after release, people were able to sell it for 3 to 4 times what it costs, like MSRP. And this one, almost every week, they've kind of flooded the market with these, which is surprising because it is, like, I mean, it's such premium materials. They're, you know, I do like this knife. I will say that before we get into the cons, but I think that that's really cool. Like, I mean, these things, if you went, like, as of, you know, a few minutes ago, I looked, these are still available on their website. So that's really cool that these are accessible to basically everyone who would otherwise have to, you know, fight over Face Blades drops or buy one on the secondary. God forbid you buy one on eBay. I mean, you just have stupid money at that point. But you know, I think that that's really cool. But getting into the cons, the first one for me is the price. Realizing that this is made out of material, you know, certainly premium materials. No one is going to argue with, you know, the steel, the handle construction, the pivot system, anything like that. Like they swung for the fences with this one, but you're still looking at, before tax, and wait for it, this is a $500 knife. And I don't know, when I bought it, I got this on the first drop. I was way too excited to get a Face Blades folder. I've used their fixed blades before and I was like, oh, these are really cool. I scooped one of these up. I was kind of blinded, although I did kind of, I'll admit it, you know, I did a double take when I saw the price tag, but I was like, nope, I'm committed. I'm going to go for it. If I'm able to get it, if it doesn't get, you know, sniped from my cart, I'm going to go for it. This, by the time the smoke cleared, was $550, right? So with that, one of my cons is that this is a one-trick pony, right? And people will post all day on Facebook groups that are, you know, all about Face Blades, like how they're, you know, cutting a freaking steak with this thing or doing whatever, like opening a box. You know, also I've seen a bunch of people who have, you know, dropped this thing, the tip breaks off. I mean, this comes to such a fine point. Guess what this is good for? This is good for like stabbing people. That's pretty much it. Like, as far as EDC goes, if you carry this, like if you post this picture of like, oh, hey, this is my EDC gear, I have this and a pry bar, whatever. Like, I'm just going to be like, no, you don't. Unless you have a Leatherman on you when you post a picture of this thing, I'm just going to be like, no, you don't actually carry this. Because like, there's no way you would do that. And the beef that I have with the price is, for that price, and again, I have not even reviewed this yet, but Hinder XM18, you can have these all day for $400. So with that extra $150, you can take your wife out to a nice dinner. You know, also, they don't make them anymore, but which this is one of, if not my favorite knives, Strider SNG, $550. Like, when I look at that, like, I mean, if you start telling me this thing's $500, it puts you in these, you know, you're basically in this swim lane right here. And this, from a totality standpoint, cannot keep up with these. And you know, that's sad, but again, like, I really do like the knife, but a huge con for me is definitely the price. All right, the next con that I wanted to go over was actually one of the designs that a lot of people do point out, this kind of design flaw. I don't really see it as being anything except for a design flaw, and I haven't owned too many ringed folders. The only other one that I've had was a Emerson Karambit kind of back in the day. But when you close this blade, which again, this thing, do not mess with it. Like, I mean, it is sharp as hell. This point is crazy. It's absolutely insane. The blade actually passes through this finger ring, which I get you wouldn't want to make this blade any shorter. I mean, we're already at 3 inches, and I think it is like it's well balanced. It looks good. It fits the profile of, you know, the frame and everything like that. But this just seems really weird to me. Like, if you are to fire this thing, like, first of all, make sure your ring finger is not, you know, in that ring. And then I'm firing it, and then I'm changing my grip to hold it. And, you know, same thing with closing it, like just being very cautious, because this super, super sharp blade, and it is really sharp, passes right through that finger ring to get to where it finally sits. So I don't know. That's kind of a delta, or like a question to me. Like, I don't really get that, but I don't like it. I'm not saying that I've ever cut myself. There's been a few times where I've fired this thing and been like, oh, check my, okay, yeah, it's still there. Like, there has been a few times like that, but I just think from a design standpoint, I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit. Like, almost what I've seen, you know, knives that are designed like this, it'll be longer so that the blade will fit in here, but then I would probably complain about this knife being too long. Like, I don't know. I guess it's like, you know, 6 in one, half a dozen in another. You got to make a decision. They went with that decision. So if you pick one of these things up, be very cautious of that. But again, every review that you read, we'll talk about that. The next con for me is the pocket clip. I think they did a good job with machining it. I mean, it looks like a premium clip for sure, but you know, like the whole thing with like a karambit too is, right, so this is sitting in your pocket and you want this finger ring to be able to like grab it, pull it out, and deploy it. With like the Emerson ones, like whether you have a wave opener on it, whatever, that's a really quick process. But with this one, the pocket clip it's very shallow, so you have all this sticking up for no reason. Like, I mean, even if I had this in my pocket, I mean, try to, yeah, bear with me here. If I grab this thing, pull up on it, this is what I will have. There's nothing that I can do from here to open it, to do anything, because literally the blade has to pass through where my finger is. So that whole notion of, you know, keeping this thing so low, whatever, it doesn't serve any purpose. It's not making it any better. And honestly, this pocket clip, it's almost like when it's in your pants pocket, like it kind of rocks a little bit because you have so much more like weight up here, and it sticks out. Like, everybody sees like, oh, you have a karambit, and it's like, no, don't worry, it's not that dangerous, because if I pull this out, I have to, you know, take my finger out, I have to go to this side, I have to go like this, and then I have to put my pinky through here, and then I have to grab it like this. Or for a reverse grip, same thing, it's going to add another step where I'm going to have to, you know, there's so many steps in there, which, like, again, very cool design, but the execution of this with the pocket clip doesn't make any sense to me. The last con that I have, yeah, this lanyard hole right here, like, I don't know, it almost like it resembles like a skull crusher in a way. And, you know, certainly these look like they're like T8 Torx bits. That's cool, but this sticks up really high. So I think like what I would have wanted to see, like, I don't know who's putting, I've never seen one of these with a lanyard in it, but this is a lot of space, you know, relegated to a lanyard hole, and a lanyard that doesn't exist unless you want to. So I would almost just get rid of this, like you know, just get rid of that. Like, it sticks up a lot. It's not really good for anything. It just, you know, further punctuates the fact that you have something that looks like a karambit in your pocket. I'd get rid of that altogether. And then the last con, well, actually, shoot, I got 2 more. Cover this really quick. So the interesting thing for me with this knife, which it's not like any other knife that I own, is this pivot. It actually, like, it spins on the outside. I don't know if you can see it, but sometimes if you go to like fire this and you're getting like oh geez, yeah, see, almost cut myself. Sometimes if you're getting lazy with it and your thumb kind of like sits on this, it's not gonna fire, because this external pivot, and I looked at it, like, I mean, it's not like it's loose or anything, but on both sides that pivot spins with the blade. So, you know, it's hooked up to bearings, but it's just kind of a weird design to me. Like, I can feel it moving the whole way, and that's just the way it is. If that is not the way it's supposed to be, please let me know. But again, I did, you know, look at it basically, and yeah, I think that's just the way it's designed. The last con for me is going to be this blade shape. Like I said before, like, if you're carrying a karambit, the only thing that's good for is, you know, we'll call it self-defense, right? Like, I mean, this blade is just made for flesh, we'll say. Like, it's not really good for anything else. I mean, if you use this on boxes all the time, it's going to get dull really, really quick. This point is so sharp and comes to such a point that there is no tip strength in here. Like, depending on what material you're cutting, you will break this tip off, and then you'll be sending it back to half face blades. It's going to be, you know, a couple millimeters shorter when they actually fix it, whatever. It's just not a very like useful blade for EDC. I don't know. I really can't get past that point for it. Like, if this is a part of your collection, which for me, this knife is part of my collection, there's no way this will ever be the only knife that I own. I would sell this before 90% of my collection. So yeah, those are my cons. All right, and with that, that's the end of my review of the SHPOS Gen 3 folder by Half Face Blades. Again, I do like this knife. I mean, everybody that ever sees this thing like is like, wow, that thing's really cool. What are the details on that? So I think it is a really cool looking knife, but again, in order to get yourself in one of these, it's going to cost you. It's not really great as far as like an all-around knife. It's super stabby. Definitely think Karambit when you see this thing. As far as the one knife to rule them all, this one is definitely not it. If I got stuck with this thing on a desert island, I would be like, man, I picked the short straw. So again, premium materials, everything in 2022, this thing is cutting edge, I would say, no pun intended, but it's definitely not the one blade to rule them all. And so our search continues. I appreciate everyone tuning in today. We'll see you next time.